Bill will probably not come on. He may try to, but um, okay. So I'm going to call the October meeting of the tree committee to order. I take it there is no public comment. We need to approve the September 10th, 2024 minutes. We have a motion for that.
Motion to approve September minutes.
One motion made. Is there a second? Is there a second? There's a second.
Yep, second.
All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay. Anybody against? Okay. I think I mentioned before, Josh, in the future, could you just list people's names that are in attendance?
I'm actually looking at them. They're in there. It's under
Okay.
call to order.
Okay, I didn't,
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm not looking at I'm looking at my piece. Okay, good. I think that's important going in the future.
Yep.
All right, let me go through a few things quickly. And then we'll get into the mitigation and other issues that we have to discuss. I may jump around on the agenda. First of all, the Broad Street trees are in. And very nice. Paul's not here, but they've got a nice, they put in nice little fencing around it.
Uh-oh. You mean in the ground?
In the
Okay.
ground, yeah. Nicole, do you think it's worth having a picture taken for the Tree City?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll stop and take a picture next time I go by.
Well, maybe with a couple people. We took a picture. Let me backtrack a second. The seeing the senior center landscaping, most of it's in now. And yesterday, Pat, myself, and Shirley went there and had our picture taken in front of some of the trees. I think I sent it out to everybody. That was just went in with the director of the senior center, Emily. So your call, Nicole. Do you think we need two sets of? It's probably a good idea to have two sets of pictures. One from the senior center, one from on Broad Street. Okay, what do you think we need people in front of it, or just a picture of the tree?
There's basically in the application, there'll be opportunities to like add extra information like that. So there's no, it's discretional. It's not required. So it doesn't have any, it's up to us. But I think for our own PR, we could probably get our committee members in the picture, or DPW or whomever, in case we want to start sharing some of these, on other town social media sources too.
Or at least
Okay.
a sign if you can't get people.
That's true.
I'm sorry, Pat, I didn't hear you.
I say at least a sign if we can't get people.
That's true. Yep.
And if it's going to be 3 or more members, just give me a heads up because we'll have to do a posting for it.
So let's do the sign.
Gosh, sometimes you could mute yourself and you go off for a break, you have to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. Yeah.
Go get a cup of coffee.
Sometimes, certain things you don't want to hear. You don't know how many times I don't put you on the list, Josh.
That's fair.
All right, well, we'll take some pictures, okay? We have some time. I think Paul should be around too for the pictures. Okay. Tree warden. Tree ordinance. I will tell you that I can't say anything definite, but the tree warden is moving along. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it is moving along. The new interim town manager is open to it, so let's give it another few weeks, and I think we'll have some more positive news on it. So it's coming. The tree, same thing with the tree ordinance. Let's see where we are. Remember, we cannot have on the committee a non-resident of the town. I went to Michael about that, we chatted about it, he agreed for the tree committee that if we could not find an arborist or serve somebody that's equal qualifications, we should be able to go out of town. And he did change the town code to allow the tree committee to do just that. It was submitted to the council in August. It is still with the council. It went to a subcommittee. And my understanding is, and I believe that this is the case, at the next meeting of the council, which I believe will be the first meeting in November, they will have that in front of them and they will approve it. So what I'm saying to you now is that by sometime in November, we should have the ability to get the next member of the tree committee, if necessary, from out of town. And my question to you is, should we start looking right now for in-town people again before this happens? And if so, maybe you could send some names to me of people you think that might be qualified or just at least should be called. Okay, any comments? Can't hear you, Shirley.
Yep, myself on
Okay.
and,
Okay, Shirley,
yep,
go ahead.
can you hear me now?
Now, yep.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a hard time finding somebody from within.
I agree.
Rather than delay this again and again because we can't find somebody qualified to do the work of a tree warden. I think we ought to try to just go ahead with the recommendation that was made by James Hayes Bohannon, and the fellow who does not live in Bridgewater, but is a teacher at the college.
Well, if you remember, we did talk to him, Shirley, Ron Akchar. He is willing, I know he's willing to be on the board.
Good.
I just want to clarify, though, that the change to the town code says that we can go out of town as long as we can't find somebody in town. So I think we have to at least go through the motions of considering somebody, and this won't go, wait a minute, this will not be in place until the town council votes it anyway. We can't do anything now, nothing until sometime in November. Okay, but if there is a possibility of somebody in town, just let me know, that's all. Okay, then we can decide at the next meeting. Fair enough? Okay. All right. Arborist, tree, I think I already touched on the senior center trees. We did talk about that. Let's do mitigation now. That's the main thing
All right.
we want to get through. Nicole, you want to take over?
Sure. Okay, so we have our sort of small working group of myself and Shirley and Ray joined us. We met to just finalize kind of like what we had been pulling together for a while, which included Shirley did a ton of research on, different tree ordinances from around the state, and I searched some as well. We were really just trying to find some good examples of what others do, particularly looking for a formula for basically, either I guess permitting kind of fines or fees associated with cutting significant trees. And we also, as a group, have discussed that we also feel that we have kind of a unique situation where we do have on some large scale private projects, we do have quite a bit of clear cutting that happens, and that perhaps that's a kind of a different category or a different conversation. So I circulated a draft. Oh, Josh, could I please share the screen?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. So I circulated a draft document, and I don't know what ultimate form this is in. But essentially the intent at this point, as far as we've discussed, would be to provide like a guidance document to the planning board, who's really currently has the authority to collect mitigation dollars that can be applied to the town's tree fund. Is that kind of a correct summary of how what our tree fund currently is and how funds can get contributed, at least from a board?
I think so. I mean, I don't think it's actually been designated as a tree fund.
Okay,
It was sort of put there because they nowhere else to go, and that's how the tree committee came about, because there was money there.
there's money. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
but
might need to
no,
ask,
that's a good point though, Nicole.
Yeah.
That should be clarified with.
that's,
with
it
the town
should.
manager.
Yeah, but what we tried to do is to just like put forward a context, right? That the first paragraph basically talks about how the town has a tree ordinance, which only applies to public trees within streets or public properties like schools and parks and so on. And just a statement that the continued loss of tree canopy and habitat due to development practices on private properties basically contributes to the degradation of the larger community and, vulnerability to climate change and all of those things. The second paragraph basically just states what I mentioned previously, that we did some research to find some precedent, case studies, examples and ordinances where we could kind of figure out how other towns are handling this, what their mitigation formula is, and sort of like the range of costs that they may require developers to pay into their tree funds, which are typically used for the same thing we're talking about here, the betterment of the town through the planting and maintenance of trees.
Could I stop for 1 second?
yeah.
Nicole, to you and to Shirley, who's done a lot of research. The information that you have put in here in terms of the data, did that come from the other town's subdivision control or from zoning? Do you know? You know what I'm saying?
Wellesley has a standalone tree protection ordinance. So
Okay.
for example, their ordinance applies to private properties.
Okay. Okay.
I did see other guidance documents that were in subdivision rules and regs, but those were the ones that didn't necessarily have formulas. Those had restrictions.
Okay.
If you, for example, cut a certain percentage of trees or whatever their formula was, it kind of kicked you potentially into a fine. But I don't know how that was handled. I never really kind of found that information.
All right. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
this may have to go to legal eventually just to determine where it should go. I think obviously some of it, if not all of it, should be in subdivision control, no question. But we may want some of this in zoning too, which makes it more potent if it's in zoning. That's all.
Yeah, I think the point was that there is the zoning, the zoning gives a lot of flexibility to the boards to, I guess, ask for mitigation or ask for trees to be protected and so on, so this draft is not really written as though is a legal, document that could be folded into an ordinance or rules and regulations at this point. I thought the intent was to give the planning board, some guidance and some
Yeah.
formula that they could use so that they are collecting a consistent amount of dollars rather than just like, negotiating arbitrary dollar values for cutting, based on these different
Right.
conversations they're having. So I think that it's to try to keep things consistent, but I agree, it would be great to get town council or the, others involved so we can figure out how to reword this. So right now we're just kind of trying to get this content forward.
Right, and we have to decide that in the future, I think. I only
Totally.
bring it up because when was it, 2 or 3 years ago, we spent 2 years on rezoning, and this gentleman from, I don't know where he came from, spent days with the planning board and I don't know who else to do rezoning.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I brought up to him was mitigation for a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a line in the present zoning that was when we adopted the change the zoning. on mitigation for tree removal, but it's just 1 or 2 lines with no
Mhm.
formula. So I'm
Right.
just saying that maybe if we can insert this into zoning besides subdivision control, it becomes much more potent than simply in subdivision control, that's all.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
For
okay, I'm sorry.
now, yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
For now, this third paragraph in the kind of preface sort of says how the tree committee recommends that the planning and zoning boards continue to work with developers to promote responsible development techniques that protect and preserve trees to the greatest extent possible. So I feel like that is like, we don't want to lose the point that this is the secondary approach, that when they kind of decide that they're going to require a developer to contribute to the town's tree fund as mitigation, these are kind of the recommended contribution rate formulas that we're putting forward.
Okay,
So for tree cutting, and this is the formula that we derived actually from a number of different, they're all very similar. So basically most of the ordinances basically have these calculations based on a tree size that's based on the diameter at breast height. So I defined the diameter at breast height below in the italics. Basically, talking about how it's the standard form of measurement, that you're basically measuring the tree's circumference
Mhm.
at a height that's about, in the United States, it's typically 4.5 feet above like the ground level. So you measure the circumference, and if you divide that by pi, you get the diameter at breast height.
Right.
So the typical range seemed to kind of break somewhere around the 18 or 20-inch size diameter breast height tree, that those are very, substantial trees, that normally taking those down would have a higher value than, kind of up to that 20-inch diameter breast height. Basically the fee would be about $150 per inch. And then thereafter, $250 per inch. And I provided in the table at the end, I did a few sample calculations so that
Mhm.
people could see how to do that.
Right.
okay.
And by the way, we dropped the dollar value down a little bit compared to the Wellesley dollars. So I'm just recognizing there's a little bit of a difference in our communities, but if we want to bump these all back up, we certainly could do so. We'd probably be more in the 150 is probably going to go up to $200 per inch, and the 250 would probably go up to 300 per inch if we were to use the Wellesley numbers. But I'll show you in my calculations what the resulting dollar value is, and you guys can help. We can all kind of maybe make a decision on that. And then the final section is about clear cutting. We tried to define, a very simple definition for what clear cutting is on kind of our private development projects in the town. And we're really just loosely defining it as uniformly cutting down like all or maybe most trees in a contiguous area for the purposes of development. And we're recommending a potential threshold of about 1/4 of an acre or more. So, clear cutting about 1/4 acre or more, you would begin to apply this formula, which is really simple, just $10,000 per acre would be the recommended value. So then the,
So a quarter would be
it,
$2,500.
correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So then in the little table, this is just like samples so that they could see, I think it could just help you visualize. So if you took like a string, a 14-inch string, that was the circumference at 4.5 feet. The resulting diameter breast height is 4.45 inches. So if you use the value in that table, the $150 an inch would result in like $670. So, the $150 per inch value, that's kind of could give you a sense of taking down one tree of that size. We would be recommending collecting this value. If we use the Wellesley numbers, we'd be probably closer to like $1,000. And then if you were to think of like a really big tree that the circumference is 40 inches, so almost, 3.5 feet, say, is how round that tree is at 4.5 feet. The resulting dollar value for that would based on this formula, where basically we would calculate a 3.89-inch diameter at breast height. So for the first 20 inches, you apply the $150 per inch. For the remaining 3.89 inches above the first 20 inches, you do the, the $250 an inch. So here's the resulting value, the 3,972.
Good, yeah.
And then finally, I just gave an example of like clear cutting. So if project C was clear cutting 0.8 acres or about 35,000 square feet, so that's close to that's, a little bit under an acre, obviously, the value would be about $8,000. So that's the first kind of recommendation we have on paper. And sounds like there's some process things, but in terms of like the dollar values and this approach with breaking kind of, a formula for individual trees and a formula for clear cutting, does anyone have any discussion on those pieces?
Yeah, well, it just occurred to me, Nicole, what if you have a situation where it's less than a quarter acre, but trees are fairly close to each other, and the developer says, hey, it's cheaper for me to pay the quarter acre price than to do the individual tree thing. What do you do then?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think that's why we're suggesting the threshold be that, that this, at the discretion of the boards. So
Okay,
we weren't, I think that we'd have to figure that out because if this is written as a like code or regulation, I do agree. We're going to have to think of every loophole
right, okay.
and catch it, but where we're basically, I don't know, where we're leaving a lot of discretion at the planning board to do the right thing and try to be consistent. I'm trying to think of would that mean we bump up the clear cutting threshold to be a little higher?
No,
Oh, okay.
your point is fair enough. If you leave
Yeah,
it up to discretion of the board, that solves the problem. You're right.
for
Okay.
now. But I feel like if it gets written into the code, I do think we're gonna want to think of like,
You can't
um,
do every little thing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
also we want to try to catch some of those little tricks that of the trade that might happen too. So we'd have to think about that.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Pat.
How current are those dollars that you used? I mean, I know a lot of regulations that I've looked at from other towns, they're quite old. So were those current numbers?
No, well, yes. So we looked at Wellesley's current numbers and they are higher. We dropped them because they seemed high. But
I would like to maintain them at the higher level
okay.
to discourage the developer. That's all. And is there any difference for any species?
Oh, yes, I didn't mention that.
Oh,
I honestly think that is where it's going to be a little bit challenging. So this is a very vague statement, but we're talking about that this would apply to cutting individual trees determined to be significant by the planning board and or tree warden. So with these large projects, when they come forward, they are required in the subdivision rules and regs to prepare an existing conditions plan that does
identify.
tag the does identify trees of a certain caliper and higher, but I don't know how often they're held to doing that. But this would require that they do that and that there is somebody like planning board and tree warden that's able to say, because I'm imagining they shouldn't have to pay a fine for cutting down some of the scrubby invasive trees or whatnot, but where there's large diameter oaks or trees that provide a significant value, I do think that is where that negotiation could happen. Because it is
So-
going to get pricey if there's every single tree in, say even an eighth of an acre. If they're cutting down, several trees, that dollar value will go way higher than our clear cutting value.
But is a pine the same value as a maple?
No, I don't know. We did talk about that though. Shirley had some very good points about trying to keep this simple.
Mhm. Right.
The only other thing we did see was that the town of Wellesley does define significant trees as they have a list of about maybe 10 species.
Okay,
So that was the only possibility is remember the list that you put forward
right.
to go in the subdivision rules based on the types of trees we think are best suited for our
Right.
community.
Yeah.
Maybe we define significant trees as a list of 10 priority species.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you all think about that?
Oh, boy.
I know. That's what I'm saying. This is leaving it really,
Yeah.
really loose. Or because every time you get more specific, you realize, oh, now we got to do this. Now we got to do
Oh, yeah.
this. Yeah.
And we're novices, so
Yeah.
Well,
we,
the beauty though, just thinking off the top of my head, the beauty of defining things specific allows the board to leeway to say, well, in this case, we will require you to do it. But at least it's there that they can do it in certain cases. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep.
If we don't define it, then the developer can say, well, hey, you don't say anything about certain types of trees, so we're gonna
right.
say,
Yep.
just cut them down, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. So for them to go out and tag and identify the species, technically they're already required to do that.
Yeah.
This can kind of help them, help the planning board say, well, wait a minute, you need to show me that plan. You got to show me what you're cutting down, and then they'd be able to have to, hopefully by that time we'd have a tree warden, but they would be able to kind of say, which trees are really significant and have a offer, value, whereas some are just
Yeah.
either, diseased or an invasive species or small or, something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, wait a minute, maybe, in that line there, Nicole, it says for cutting individual trees, determined to be significant by the planning board and or tree ward, maybe it should be
Mhm.
determined to be significant by the tree committee and or tree warden.
Oh, good point.
The planning board knows nothing about it.
I think that's one of the weaknesses here is the ability to be not consistent.
Hmm.
From year to year, new members come on board, they have different feelings about things. Without some guideline there, we could be all over the fence. And I think that's one of the weaknesses here is to not have some consistency built in. I like the idea of putting the tree in place of the planning board because they're dealing with this more frequently, we hope, and can generate a significant list of trees that are significant, for instance, to help to provide some consistency.
But now where we're not, we don't review projects coming forward, unless we're doing it just as a citizen. So the tree committee does not have a current
Right.
task, right, to review projects coming forward to zoning and planning. So that would be the only tricky thing that we'd have to still rely on them to reach out to us and say, hey, we could use your help figuring out, this calculation until we have a tree warden.
Or you
Or-
could, but then maybe the compromise would be for cutting individual trees determined to be significant by the planning board with the advice of the tree committee and or tree ward.
Good point. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Okay, again, now have we decided whether we want to define significant?
We should think about making a list of significant trees.
Yep. And we could leave it a little loose too. These are the tree committee recommends that the planning board consider the following trees at a minimum to be significant. So we're not going to get every one. There could be some beautiful, some tree that we aren't aware of. And I think
Okay.
we'll need to give them some discretion too because of some of the they may bring forward an argument too for some of the, like a diseased tree or a beech tree that's starting to exhibit, you know, that borer disease and stuff like that too. So I think we do need to keep it flexible, but, I think that list that Pat, the draft list you have might be a good start. Cause it's like oaks and beech and maples
I was
and,
gonna
yeah,
say the same thing. Maybe Pat's list is the.
it might be the list.
Is there any reason not to make it the significant tree list?
I don't think so. I think it would. So,
Okay,
concerns you might have about this is, will we end up dealing only with street trees? I mean, a developer is going to come in and he's going to remove trees predominantly with the idea in mind that there is a road that's going to go through here. And so the road becomes the demarcation for the trees.
now,
nope, this is private. These are,
Hmm.
this is, a way to cover projects that are exempt from the tree ordinance because the tree ordinance only covers public property, public street trees. This is a way in which the planning board can kind of use their current authority to, you know, work with developers on private and where they're, you know, kind of coming to those negotiations to collect mitigation dollars. This is advice to keep the formula consistent.
right, this gives the planning board a lot more ability to not simply ask, but demand that monies be given to the town for cutting of trees. Yeah, great. Okay, again, we should decide how we're going to define significant now.
So I typed in here that the one way we could is to say the tree committee recommends the following list of trees at a minimum. So give them discretion to choose more, shall be considered to be significant trees.
Okay.
And then we could insert Pat's list. That's one way we could handle that. It's still a little loose, but yet it gives them a little bit more guidance.
Okay. What do you
The
think, Bob?
Wellesley does not have any evergreens on their list. There's, I believe, was, you know, again, like all oaks and beech and birch and maple, those types of trees. And I think, Pat, your list were similar species as well.
I think the only problem we had with my list was finding short trees because all of them are not native. You
That's
know,
true.
they're all from like Japan or somewhere, a transport. So that part is tricky, but as I was looking at the 3 lists that Bill Maltby had from DCR and even National Grid, our original list was really good. So I feel
Yeah, that's true. Our list had to do more with what you should plant in a streetscape. That's why we were looking for shorter.
right.
So that's sort of irrelevant. I think here we're trying to protect trees that are more in a natural setting. So basically we'd be trying to
right.
protect our native
Yeah,
species that are
right.
native to, so where would we get that list? Bill.
Well, that's what we did when we made the list. Was
Oh, okay.
we selected strictly native and pollinators,
Okay.
native and keystone. And that was going to be one of my questions today, is that acceptable to everyone on the committee? Because I've been focusing on that and hope that everyone is in agreement.
I'm sorry, say that again, Pat. What are you saying?
I'm saying the original list that we made
Right,
was strictly native and pollinators, which are
Right.
keystone. And I want to make sure the whole committee is in agreement on that, because that was my goal. It wasn't, a committee decision. I want to make sure everyone's comfortable with that.
what do the rest of you think? Shirley? Can't hear you again, Shirley.
I'm sorry, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Nicole, you too?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
I
I'm
agree.
fine- I'm
For
fine
the
with
new,
that.
for our recommended trees that for planting, I agree the lists could be similar, but I think here we just want to make sure these would be trees that are, again, potentially in a more natural, kind of undeveloped settings or that are providing substantial shade and canopy and habitat. So those
Right.
would be the ones.
Right.
Well,
They're-
let me throw out a question then. If we're, Pat, if we're talking about your list as being the list that we want to see planted,
Right.
is it possible that there are some trees that we don't want to be cut because of whatever, their beauty or whatever, that are not on that list,
Yes,
right?
I think there would be because we don't want to plant enormous trees in the street because they can't thrive there. But there could be enormous trees on,
Right.
yeah.
So this
So,
list would not be the total list then. It would
right.
we have to have some, that list that Pat has, and then it could be added and or trees determined significant by the tree committee.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Pat, you understand what I'm saying here?
No, I
Okay, let
don't.
me. Thank you.
Oh, I
I
found it.
sometimes wonder about what I say too. Your list of native trees that
Yes.
is a list that we give to the planning board so
Mhm.
that these trees are to be planted
Right.
in lieu of whatever, of cutting. But what happens, Pat, if they're cutting trees down and they cut down a tree that's not on the list, but it's still a tree that we think, for whatever reason, is an important tree. Don't we want that tree saved?
We'd love to have it saved unless they're gonna pay us the thousands of dollars. I mean, if it's in one of those areas that has to be cut.
Right.
Right. Like I'm trying to see where the list for Wellesley. Um, so these are examples of the types of trees that they
Okay.
are considering significant. So they're very, maple, oak, hawthorn, dogwood.
Yeah.
They do also have a list of invasive trees that they,
Right. Right.
but that's kind of a separate topic, but related.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually I just reminded myself, I did not, those values were the actual, Wellesley values.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I dropped it down to give ourselves a little economic break compared to their, compared to the other town, but nope, I think we'll hold ourselves accountable
Well,
on the same level.
that's dated 2011, Nicole, so maybe the values are different now.
No, this is a live document, so they just haven't changed it since.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see though if I can find a longer list of the ones that like what their list of significant trees are, because I do feel like it would be pretty similar.
Yeah, and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're saying again, I just clarify for myself, is that we are going to charge X number of dollars for cutting down significant trees for, say, a subdivision. But if there are 12 pine trees that we're
Hmm,
gonna cut down, that's okay, right? We don't charge.
I don't know.
I think we could leave that's where I feel like we could leave the discretion that the planning board could decide those are significant because of whatever reason. They're providing protection from wind, they're connected to an adjacent,
Well, wait a minute.
habitat. I don't know.
But when we define, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, your definition for clear cutting though, doesn't
Right.
come up with significant trees.
Nope.
We're just saying you're cutting down so much acreage, you're gonna have to pay X number of dollars,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So significant trees don't come into account then. So why do they come into account if we're not clear cutting? I'm being devil's advocate here.
Because they're individual trees, maybe, and not in a grouping. I don't know.
I mean, should we not be charging if they have to cut down 12 trees to put in 4 houses? Should we, even though they're pines, should we say that's no big deal?
No, we should require them to leave whatever they can.
Yeah. So that would go back to just leaving, not coming up with a list and leaving it very, very discretionary. But again, that would, I can see pros and cons of either way, you know?
I would, just speaking from my experience on the planning board, I would
Yeah,
rather see a fairly strict definition, at the same time give the planning board leeway to
okay,
give them, they can override it. If you don't have that, then there may not be any discussion. I'll give you an example. There is a hardware store and self-storage going in on 18. I think it's just
Right, right.
where what's his face?
Briscoe.
Frisco's is. And at the 1 or 2 meetings that I attended, I watched, I'm not on the board anymore. I did suggest money being given for trees cut down. And I think what the board did was they, in lieu of asking for money, they saved some trees. No,
Mhm.
they made the decision.
Yeah.
To save, well, my attitude, when they were even talking about that, my attitude is why not both? Save some trees and give us money. I'm just
Right.
saying that if the bylaw is fairly strict, then if the board wants to give the developer some leeway, fine. But if it's not strict, then it's gonna be the developer's ability to do something without any money being given.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I guess what I'm saying is that if we have a formula for the cutting of trees, I don't know, I'm two minds about this. I mean,
I
the
know.
idea that there's significant trees is, I think, a good idea. At the same time, I can see cutting, a large number of trees that don't meet the requirement of, clear cutting. And they may not be significant trees.
Right. They could be all pines,
They could
scrub.
be all
Yeah,
pines,
scrubbed.
yeah.
But we want to save as many trees, whether they're pines or significant.
Well, that's the thing too. I didn't want to lose the fact that this, ideally that should all be happening first, that they should be really pushing back on the
Right.
excessive cutting. And I think that there's certain areas that they are permitted to clear, to build what they have their right to build by right, based on their zoning.
Right, for the
Um,
footprint.
for the footprint of the actual building, but it's really the excessive cutting to make and clear and land
Yeah.
moving and stuff that is of the huge disturbance.
Right,
And in many cases, it's just done, to save money, but it is causing a huge disruption to, the local
yeah,
environment. So this can kind of help to say, you need to show us a plan. You need to show us what you're cutting down, and we're going to question why you're cutting, most of this down, and then we're going to start charging you this much per tree.
Well, the other thing the planning board can do, and they do right now, is if you cut a certain area, put in a house or 3 houses or whatever, they always require a landscaping plan, which could mean planting new trees.
Right.
right, right.
Absolutely. So if they're, but the loss of some of these well-established trees really are irreplaceable, to put the little dinky sticks in the ground and hope they
Yeah.
survive. So that piece of it's a little tricky too, but
Yes, but I'm
yeah.
saying, I'd rather see it strict, but give the planning board leeway to modify it.
Yep. So one way we could do that would be to give some examples, but basically say this is not an exhaustive list, but these would be typical species you should be looking at. And it could be those ones we were just reading from Wellesley,
Yeah.
you know, the dogwood and, you know, all of those.
Right.
And then maybe and then we'll pull as many as we can from those other lists. But again, saying this is not, you know, exhaustive and at the discretion of the planning board and the tree committee and the tree warden, you know, others may be discussed, especially larger diameter.
Okay,
So I could try to wordsmith something here and try to pull from those lists so that everyone can take another review.
I'm fine with that. What do you think, Shirley? Can't hear you, Shirley.
The other thing I'm concerned about is we were talking a little bit about pine trees. I don't want us to get to a position where
Shirley, can't hear you. You muted yourself, Shirley. Okay,
Did you hear me now?
now you can, yeah.
I'm just concerned that we get rid of all the pine trees. New England is noted for its pines, its hemlocks, its spruce and so on. We don't want to make them poach the enemy within. We
Yep.
want to be sure that we protect them to whatever extent and not just feel that they can, a forest of pine or that variety of trees can just be clear cut.
Right,
Yep,
I agree.
I agree. So maybe some of those need to show up on our list. And they can make the argument, that these are in terrible shape or that this is this, but like for now, I think that, yeah, I agree. Those are providing habitat and in a lot of our upland areas, which are the areas that we have contiguous tree canopy that does exist. I believe most of them are probably evergreen.
Well, maybe we should go back to, we're going around in a circle here, maybe we should go back to and not have a list at all. Just use the word significant.
Yep.
And by the planning board and the tree committee. That, if you just use the word significant, you don't list the trees, then significant can mean a pine tree.
Right.
That makes sense or no?
I'm a little bit worried about.
Shirley can't hear you again.
We can faintly hear you.
If the planning board is the only group that's going to weigh in on this, I'm a little concerned that we may need more guidance for people who are not dealing with trees on a regular basis, and whether that comes through a recommendation of the tree warden or what.
Yep.
That might be a way of dealing with it.
So we're going to say with the advice of the tree warden. So if we added that in tree committee, obviously until we have a tree warden, tree committee and or tree warden, that we would be giving advice.
Right,
So it could determine to be significant by, and hopefully they would ask for our advice. That would be the only other idea would be to have a loose list, like a typical list, but be very clear that this is not exhaustive, that other species may exist, but these would be typical species to be looking for. But I could see someone really trying to say, well, this isn't on the list, so.
yeah, I agree.
And we require the tree warden to have final approval.
Hopefully that's where that would be the ultimate goal, that
Right.
they would be reviewing all projects coming forward through planning and zoning.
I don't think you can do that.
Can we put that in
I think if this is before the planning board, they
Yeah.
have the final say for approval.
Yeah,
It's the advice of the tree warden, not the tree warden can't make a determination.
Can we make that one of the required steps? That he has to, okay, whatever we're approving?
I guess we can try. I'm not sure it's gonna go by legal, but there's no harm in trying.
Yeah, I'd like that. We need an authority, not just what we'd
See,
like.
as far as I know, Pat,
Mhm.
I can't think of any person or board including the council, including the town manager, that can override a planning board decision
Okay,
legally. Nobody.
So for now, whereas this is a guidance document, maybe we could add a sentence that say we, we highly recommend, consulting with the tree warden,
Right.
through this process. And then if we end up speaking to legal and this is going to be written as a, like, more of a regulation, then maybe that could be written into it a little bit differently. But again, you're right, it's only going to be advice. It's sort of like how the conservation agent, acts. They help advise and give advice, but they can't they can't change a decision, right?
No, no, wait a minute. Conservation can make their own determination. In other words, the planning board, for instance, the hotel
Mm-hmm.
being planned, the planning board can approve it, but conservation, under its laws, can deny.
Oh, yep. I was just saying how, like, they do have an agent on the Conservation Commission who gives advice.
Okay. Yeah, well, the thing is that the conservation commission has more power than the tree committee. Tree committee has really no power.
Oh, no, no, we have no power.
No,
And
we
they're,
don't.
that's sort of irrelevant because they're just
Yeah,
handling the
okay.
kind of the wetland piece, but yeah, I was just
All
kind of
right, but-
giving an example of somebody else that kind of can help be,
Where
advise.
where are we at right now? Are we saying significant tree is determined by the planning board with the advice of the tree committee and tree warden? Is that where we're at? Okay,
Yes. And then do we want to have this typical list, not exhaustive, or just no list at all?
I don't see any harm in putting it in, as you're saying, not an exhaustive list. At least
Okay.
it's a guideline.
Yep. Okay, so we can add that. We will add that to better describe that. We're going to add in the advice of the tree warden and the tree committee, and then we're going to potentially add another sentence about using the advice of the expertise of the tree warden to help guide the planning board through this process. That's
Right.
about the extent of what we think we can do right now with our limited power. So I can make these updates and circulate a second draft.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I think that's good. It's been a more intense discussion than I thought this would be.
I
but
know.
It's good. It's good.
It's complicated.
Well, it's better that
is.
we straighten this stuff out now than get it
Mhm.
shoved back to us because of something.
Yep.
Why
No,
don't
getting it
we-
on paper was a big first step. So, obviously then we can start to, I guess, what would be that once these edits are made, and if we all agree, then who are we bringing it forward to? Do we have a ask to get on? Do we speak
Well-
with the interim town manager? Do we get on?
We
okay.
submitted our ordinance, tree ordinance to Michael before he left.
Okay.
And I've got to find out where that is, but this is gonna be the same thing. It's got to go to the town manager.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure what happens there. It's probably got to go to legal. I think this is a good first step, but this may take a while. It's just,
Would it make sense to see at some point if we can get on the agenda kind of, once it's moved forward a little bit, to I
yeah,
guess
I'm gonna
present it to the planning board just to as our kind of something that we're bringing forward? Or
do you want?
no, I mean, I don't want to do it, but
I don't know if you
I know
want
you
to.
want to do it.
I think I'd rather say, here it is, planning board. deal
Okay,
with it."
gotcha.
If you talk to the planning board, you're gonna get 5 different opinions and there's.
That's right.
and
That's
they're
why
not-
we have
Not
to
the ones
have-
you want either.
Yeah, we have to have a good regulation because they're very nice to people.
All right, why don't we do this? And why don't we, Nicole, if you agree, if you can modify what we've talked about, send it, if you want to send it out to everybody, fine. If not, send it to me and I'll send it out to everybody. And then we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. This is, as much as this is taking a while, I think we're gonna have a better document once we finish. Okay, is that fair enough, everybody?
Mhm,
All
mhm.
right. Okay, Pat, do we need to talk about your list or no?
I don't think so. We do have to be careful on the dogwoods just to make sure. I'm not sure which are native. There's different varieties. I can look that up.
Okay. Shirley, you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Danny?
all right? Okay,
No, Shirley.
hear me now?
No,
No?
There you go.
now we can hear you.
Okay. Can I also suggest, Ray, as you wanted names?
Yeah, wait, you have to speak louder.
Ray, as you wanted names to be on the list of agenda items and so on, can we also have, whenever we send something out, a document that will be dated with the month, the date, and the year? So that it's not just
Yeah,
Wednesday next week or something like that?
I think that's a good point. Maybe, I think if I understood Shirley correctly, Nicole, maybe you could, when you send a document, when you send a revision, just date the document that when it's been done. So we know which one is which. That's a good point. Thanks, Shirley. Yeah, I do the same thing. Yeah.
Yep. So the prior one had said draft 10/14/24. So then if this one comes out on Friday, I'll write draft 2 10/18/24, and then we can kind of keep track.
Okay. Let's see. Let's try to finish this. Nicole, do we need to talk about Tree City, or are we going to move along okay on that?
Yeah, let's bump that to the agenda next month so I can, I think we'll be in good shape though. The applications are now open. So over the next month, I can kind of get back in and start our next application. I'm hoping a lot of it's going to copy over from last year and it might be easier. So I will, in advance of the next meeting, just have a list of things that I need from others, but
Okay.
I should be okay.
No need for a poster contest this year?
We will definitely want to do the poster contest, but that will be for Arbor Day, which they publish like in the early
Oh, that's
winter.
right. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that'll
gotcha,
be for
gotcha.
Arbor Day. But we're going to be, when I have to document what we did for Arbor Day this year, that'll be included.
24, yeah.
Yeah, we'll put a list of how we celebrated for the Arbor Day. So I'll talk about the celebration and I'll talk about the poster contest. And then there's another section where we talk about all the trees that we've planted. So I will be able to add, obviously, the senior center trees, the new ones on the Broad Street, the ones we planted at the school. So we have a few more than last year.
Good, good. All right, great. Those are the main things I have on the agenda. Anybody want to bring anything up? I still want to, I put on where do we go from here? Are we missing something as a tree committee that we should be doing? I think the outreach to the public is still needed. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be. I'd like to do another forum maybe in February, March, but we missing something here? I still have a stack of flyers from our old forum on how to plant a tree. I don't know, should we have a table someplace, I'm just throwing this out to you. I just like to know if we could do more to let the public know that we're doing trees, that's all. I like to think about that. Yeah, Shirley.
I do believe that there is
Shirley, no.
I do believe that there is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That there is a need to educate people about the value of trees, the kinds of trees, how to plant them, where to plant them. There's any number of things that we could be doing to educate the public.
Yep.
Just in basic rules and what they can and cannot do, because
Yep.
people do not understand that because they own the property, that doesn't give them license to do other things with it.
That's right.
Agreed, Shirley, but the question is, how do we do it? That's what I'm trying to get at. How do we get that out to the public? Pat?
last month's meeting, we talked about some social media and you suggested people send their suggestions to me. I haven't heard from anyone.
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
did ask Paul, if I could meet with him so that I could get a procedure together. You know, if somebody did want to cut down a tree in their front yard, just to make sure the process, you know, he has to check to make sure how far that tree might be from the center line of the roadway. And
Well,
I need to know the details.
didn't we talk, I'm not sure if Josh is on or not. Josh, you there? All right.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, did we talk about the fact that you could put something on the website about? No,
If we
Yeah,
get,
yeah, I can definitely get something up on the website. You know, I have access to the Facebook too, and the tree committee's webpage, so.
yeah, I
that.
thought we talked about that. We didn't do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I just need something submitted to me and then it takes me like 15 minutes.
You want to, what do you think? I mean, did you think just the flyer, put on the website?
that would be good. But if we're going to try to educate people about cutting trees down in their front yard, which might be town trees, I need to know the process so we can put something together to educate them.
All right, why don't we do this? Pat, do you want to, hate to say this, do you want to, head up the, group? I
Or
mean, No, no,
I'll
okay.
contact Paul again because he can tell me the process. And then once we get something together, we can give it to Josh for distribution. Does that sound good?
Yeah, works for me.
All right, how do you want to do this then?
I probably need to talk to Paul.
About what? About the,
Yeah, it's a tricky process because it's not standard throughout the town. There are different measurements on different roadways. So there's got to be, the public has to know who to contact to find out if that's their tree or a town tree.
okay, I see your point, yeah.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
that's a good point. Why don't we start from there then, Pat? Can you mind talking to Paul?
I'll try again, yeah.
Okay, or I'll help you too on that, but let's say at the next meeting, we will have some basic stuff we can put on the website or Facebook or
Okay.
whatever.
We put something together then, Joe.
Okay, that's good.
Distribute it.
I will tell you, I don't know if when you go to 24, I take the back road to the Hockomock Light. There's a couple new houses that were put up there 2 years ago. And they planted 3 trees right at the edge of their property near the street. And the nursery that did it volcanoed the trees. They put
Oh, yeah,
and I rode by just a few days ago and the couple was out there. I stopped and told them that, and he was very appreciative.
oh, yeah, that's,
I said, you don't trust me, go on the web and check, but that's probably not a good idea to do that.
right.
So what you're saying is something on Facebook or our website would be
Sure, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
good. Okay, we'll do that next time. Anybody else? Okay, then I'll take a motion to adjourn. Well, our next meeting will be in 3 weeks, by the way.
Oh,
Oh, no, you're supposed to say, oh boy, that's great, Pat.
What's the date?
I want a month.
I don't know. I don't know. It's probably the second week in November. Yeah. You have something to look forward to, Shirley. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Moves, is there a second? Second by Pat. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, folks. Good discussion. Good. Thanks, Nicole. You did a lot of work on that.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, everyone. I'll see you later.
Good afternoon.